For great ideas and practical tools you can start using tomorrow to grow your business and separate you from the competition, you've come to the right place. If you're into B2B marketing and sales, then welcome to the one and only B2B Marketing and Sales Podcast. With over 60 and counting total years in the trenches of businesses small and large, they have a plethora of knowledge and experience that generate you more leads, capture more clients, ring up more sales. Well, doggone it, just make you more money. How about that? Always thought-provoking, yet dubiously entertaining. Please welcome to their respective microphones across 3 time zones, your co-ringmasters, the Dave Loomis, and not the rock star, Steve Miller.
Let's do it once again. We are back.
We are.
We are back, and we are bad. We're like the bad boys, too.
Better.
That's what we are. We're better and bad. Badder and better than the other people. I'm Steve Miller, better known as Kelly's dad, marketing gunslinger, and not the rock star. And with me is I am actually his sidekick. I'm like Robin to the Batman. And since Batman just came out, the Batman movie just came out.
I've heard it's great.
I know we're going to see it on Thursday, I think, when we go to Palm Springs. So anyway, so I am with my buddy, the Dave Loomis. Bring it on.
The Dave Loomis.
Thank you very much, Mr. Voice. Love that voice. Love that voice. And we are talking about something that is not necessarily near and dear to my heart. But
I knew, yet we have not discussed this, but I knew that's what was going to come up. I knew it. Did I pick this topic? You might have picked this topic. But this is going to be an interesting one because I might have a different perspective.
Well, I'm very anxious to hear what you have to say about this. We are going to talk about the Net Promoter Score.
We are.
That's what we're going to talk about. That has I got to give this thing credit. It has amazing legs.
Yeah.
In 2003, a guy named Fred Reichheld wrote a book or a paper or something like that. I think it might have been with the Harvard Business School, and he announced this thing called the Net Promoter Score, and we'll talk about what it means, what it is exactly. But one of the statements he made in that article was he said the company, this is the only metric that companies need to predict success. Okay. All right. And it's famous that he made that statement.
Bold statement.
Very bold statement. So let me ask you, do you know what the net, actually, and I should also say, I met Frederick Reichheld. He and I spoke together at a conference at least 10 years before he came out with this.
Okay.
So it was nowhere near. It was nowhere in the conversation, right?
No, that's funny. So the second book called The Ultimate Question 2.0 by Fred.
By Fred, right? Yeah.
Also,
I shouldn't say Frederick. I should say Fred.
It's also written by Rob Markey, who was a co-partner at Bain with Fred, and also a high school classmate of mine.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Well, there you go,
so
boy.
We both know.
Once again.
The
universe is just sending more messages to us, right? That's really cool.
Yeah.
All right. So I am going to give you I'm going to assume that you know more about this than I do. So can you explain to the people who are watching or listening to this, what exactly is the Net Promoter Score? What is it supposed to mean? How do you find out what a Net Promoter Score is?
Okay, so I'm going to do this really fast so we don't get sidetracked on the sort of nitty-gritty details.
Easy to do.
Because I think a lot of listeners might know what this is, but if you don't, the Net Promoter Score it started out as a single question, and the question is, paraphrased, a supplier to a customer, how on a scale of 1 to 10, 0 to 10, how likely are you to recommend this supplier that you're working with to someone else?
That's right.
And if you score a 0, if you say 0 through 6, you are what they call a detractor.
Detractor.
You don't. That's bad.
Okay? Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. George W. Bush would say something like, "It's bad,
not good, not good."
And if you are a 9 or a 10, you are a promoter. That's good.
Promoter.
That's huge. That's what another president would have said.
And 7 or 8, we just don't care.
Yeah, we don't care. They're passive. 70, and they don't even get into the calculation.
They're not. No, they're not even. We don't even acknowledge that they were even there.
No. And then there is a formula. Okay. So
very complicated.
It's not that complicated. Basically, you're subtracting the percentage of detractors from the percentage of promoters.
Right.
When you get in all of your survey results. Okay. So now, what does this score even mean? Now they've got tons of volume of results, and they say that a score between 0 and 30 is good, and if higher is obviously even better. Below 0 is bad because that means you really have more detractors.
Yeah, if you subtract, so like we take the 9s and 10s, the percentage of people who gave 9 and 10, right, and then we subtract the percentage of people who gave 0 to 6,
right,
and that's your score. So if it's a positive number, it's at least at the very minimal, it's good.
Yeah, and like many of these things, it is a benchmark. So to me, it's somewhat meaningless the first time you do it and in isolation. And it's really a relative score once you do it multiple times and you see movement. So obviously, if you do your net promoter score, quarterly or annually or whatever, and it goes down, that's bad. If it goes up, that's great. You're making progress. And I'll say one more thing, because I probably have more to say about this, but I will just say that I have often been critical of NPS because companies tend to think, especially B2B companies who were a little bit late to this game, potentially, tend to think that it's a silver bullet, be all end all, and it is equal to voice of customer, which it's not. It is one tool in the voice of customer toolkit. And even Bain and Company that sort of runs, net promoter score, at least they let it out into the world.
But they've built their business on it. And even they don't really rely on the single question. They call it a system, and they've got an inner loop and an outer loop, and they're consultants. They come up with graphs and words and things like that. But one thing that I really do like, and I have not read this book yet, but there's a third book, NPS 3.0, which I did not know about, which is called Winning on Purpose. It's also by Fred, and it says that it demonstrates that the primary purpose of a business should be to enrich the lives of its customers. When customers feel this love, they come back for more, bring their friends, generating good profits. And I would say both you and I agree to that. Maybe. So he's taking on Peter Drucker.
Okay.
And he thinks he's going to step into those shoes.
Yeah, that's my first, sort of answer your question.
I mean, I think that's a very, very, kumbaya answer, to define it like that. I am a complete hater of the score.
Wow, that's a strong word.
Well, and for very good reason. Okay. Because the question is, how likely are you to recommend this company?
What if you love a company, but you never recommend any company? You're not a recommender. What if you're not a recommender?
Well, but you see, I'm going to compare it to a question that the trade show industry has been guilty of of asking their attendees for 50 years. And that question is, when a trade show is over with and they do a post-show survey of attendees who went to the trade show, one of the questions they ask is, do you intend to go to the show next year? Okay. Now, and the average answer, I would say, to that question is 85% of people who take the survey and attended a trade show say that they will be there next year. Okay. Now, having been involved in working with trade shows for many, many years, I started to realize something, and that was that most of those people are lying. All right, because they're saying they intend to come next year. But the fact of the matter is that for the average trade show, average annual trade show, the percentage of people who come back from the previous year is 70%.
Oh, that's different.
You can take this to the bank. You 70%. Can absolutely take this to the bank. This is proven over trade shows in every industry, every size, every make and model.
Yeah, there's a certain number of players in that kind of have to go.
So what that told me when I recognized this, okay, and I think I was the first one who saw the reality of the trade show attendees versus what, of their actions versus what they said they were going to do. And I realized, you know what? You cannot ask people what their intentions are, because their intentions do not tell you what their actions are going to be. So,
okay. So the ultimate question about NPS is, how likely are you to recommend? Now, even if they don't actually recommend, do you think the score that they give is indicative if they were to recommend?
No, because I think what has been found in research circles is that, and it's like with focus groups, okay, is that there is a heuristic in this type of situation where people tend to tell you what they think you want to hear. And it's just not true. And so what I decided was, okay, the question is the question is just simply a wrong question. The correct question should be, have you ever recommended this company? Period. Have you ever? Okay, and that's the one that's going to tell me, whether it, this company is any good or not. Yeah. It's just like with trade shows. It's now like, okay, it's not, do you intend to go next year? It's, have you registered?
Right. So here's a question for you. How, and you might not know I don't know the answer to this question. I just know from experience. But I do know that NPS is pretty big in B2B now. Big enough that Bain has a whole section on NPS and B2B on their website. Mm-hmm. And, it's very well written and sounds great, and you just kind of read it and want to do it. But here's my question. When the survey goes out, what percentage of those surveys do you think really has just that singular question versus a whole bunch of other sort of customer sat-ish, and then at the very end, they throw that one question in?
Right.
I personally think it's a high percentage. It didn't start out that way, but more and more I'm seeing, good and bad surveys, obviously, but sure. I'm seeing lots of questions, and then I'm seeing an NPS question thrown in at the end.
Right. Yeah, I agree with you. I've seen that over the year. That has increased over the years as well. And I keep saying, and I keep telling my clients, stop asking for intentions. Ask for what have they done. I mean, because intentions don't tell us anything. They really don't. I intend to go to the trade show next year. Well, and then I don't. All right. Well, I mean, of course, there could be some mitigating factors that fall into that. You might have lost your job. You may have moved out. You may that sort of stuff. So there's an expectation of that there's a certain percentage of them that you have to give credit. That okay, they meant to, but they weren't able to, or something like that. But but it's still but the reliable numbers are still based on actions, not intent.
Yeah. So if under your description, if they are overemphasizing and telling people what they want to hear, that means that if somebody really does get a low score for a net promoter, it's really bad. Things are really bad because gosh, people mostly lie, and so high scores are misleading.
Well, it's not, and I said, the people were lying, okay, and because I'm trying to get a rise out of the people I'm talking to, right? But but I think people lie because they don't want to hurt your feelings, right? They don't want to make you feel bad. Now, but at the same time, let me have I shared with you my all-time favorite focus group story that I think is in the lore of focus group stories of
I don't know, but
of Sony,
tell it again,
Sony's Walkman. When Sony came out with the original Walkman, they came to the U.S. and they ran focus groups all over the U.S. with young people who were the target market of the Sony Walkman. And one of the questions they were asking these focus groups was, what color should it be? Because we're only going to make it in one color. We don't, that's and so they had three colors, three examples in the room for the people for these people to look at. One was red, one was black, one was silver. And they said, which one do you think we should make? And the overwhelming choice by the focus groups was black.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then at the end of each of the focus groups, they said to them, oh, and as a thank you for helping us out, we have free Sony Walkman for each of you in the back of the room, and you can just go back there and pick it up and leave. Thank you very much. And they had a pile of red, they had a pile of black, and they had a pile of silver, and the overwhelming number of people chose silver.
And then did they base their results really on what
the original came out silver,
not what they said? Yep. So actions speak louder than words.
Actions speak louder than words.
I like that. Well, a similar thing happened to Coca-Cola, but unfortunately,
with the new Coke,
the product
with the new Coke.
My friend from college, it was his first job out of college, and he was so excited to get this job with Coca-Cola and to do these focus groups all over the country testing new Coke. It was top secret, so he couldn't say what he was doing, but he was testing versus Pepsi.
Right.
And the story that came out was that they just had people take a sip of each of the new Coke and Pepsi, and when you take a sip of it, it tastes great, and it tastes better than the Pepsi. But they never had anyone drink an entire one, 12 ounces, and it was so sweet and gross that after a few sips, even, or half of it or whatever, it was disgusting and people hated it. But that's not what they tested. They just tested quickly a sip.
Right.
So they should have really put here, as a thank you, at the back of the room, here's a whole bottle of this stuff or a 6-pack, and drink it all, and then give us your feedback after that.
Yeah,
exactly. But one other thing I wanted to say, I really don't believe that Bain, that this system, this NPS system, it cannot possibly rely on just a number, because they have all this stuff about how there's should be team problem solving, and there's individual learning and behavior change, and then there's structural improvement, and opportunities, routed to the right place and prioritized and enacted. And you don't learn that from the score. You actually don't know. I worked for a woman named Ann Knowles in Chicago. Ann and Cliff owned a company called Marketing Solutions that turned into a company that still is in existence called InnoSite that does Telesite that does a lot of survey work for Microsoft and Dell and huge companies. They're retired now, but Ann taught me something extremely important, and that was in a survey, only ask questions that if you see the answer to it, if it's a poor score, you know how to take action to correct it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it sounds totally obvious, but ever since I learned that, any survey that I look at that with that screen, and I'm like, well, okay, if you got this back, and it was a low score, or it said you needed improvement, what improvement would you take? Right. And usually the people are like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, you need follow-up questions, or you need to do more, you need to word it different or whatever. So, NPS, that one question, in my mind, it does not stand on its own.
It's like fingernails on a blackboard to me, because not only does it not stand on its own, but it just keeps hanging on. It's still there. 19 years after being published, it's still a tool that companies use. And I keep saying to them, stop using this tool, or at the very least, stop using it as a primary, a primary result. Okay. Where you pat yourself on the back or something like that,
Right. Well, like 200 years from now, we'll be gone, and they'll be up in a space station somewhere because they had to escape Earth. And some marketing person on the space station is going to be saying, hey, on a scale of 0 to 10,
exactly right.
How likely
and I
are
just
you to recommend this anti-gravity machine to? And they're going to answer, and
That's
people
right.
will just rely on that.
Yep, that's exactly right. And that's what scares me, is that this thing is just going to it's just going to stay there. And it just gives me such a bad taste. That people have to be much smarter. Like when we talked about voice of the customer, see, that is a much, much smarter, better, more effective way to find out what your customers really, really think. And then base your decisions on that. But to even give any kind of credo, is that the word I'm looking for? Any kind of, credence. Thank you. Yes. Credence Clearwater Revival. To NPS to me is a giant mistake. So I invite people to come in and just absolutely chastise me and rip me apart.
Mistake.
Giant mistake. So now I have to cut you off, my friend, because as you know, my smoking hot wife, Kay, needs to take our cat to the vet.
These are real world problems, folks.
This is a real world problem. And she, and as probably everybody knows who's listening to us right now, it is not possible for one person to put a cat in a crate.
At least not recommended.
Do not try this at home. Well, wait a minute. I am at home.
You are at home, but don't try it because,
So
it's dangerous.
It's dangerous. Mr. Voice, take us out of here.
All righty. You have been listening to the B2B Marketing and Sales Podcast with Not the Rockstar Steve Miller, who's also Kelly's dad and marketing gunslinger. Yay. He's got more names than I do. I just have the Dave Loomis.
Aliases.
The
They're just all aliases.
Yeah, exactly. When I was very young, when I first learned cursive, I would always write David the Great. That was what I always used.
Learned how to curse when you were very young?
Oh, yes.
Wow.
Cursive. Yes, I was very cursive at a young age. My mom was so proud. All right. Thanks, everybody. We will see you next time, and there will be no cursive. Take care.
Well, not from you.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the one and only B2B Marketing and Sales Podcast, the source for B2B marketing and sales insight. If you enjoyed the podcast, please be sure to subscribe and leave these old guys a 5-star rating. Check the show notes for any links and contact information. You can always contact us by going to b2bmarketingsalespodcast.com. Thank you, and keep on marketing, keep on selling.